Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much. We'll now move to Mr. Masse for 6 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for the witnesses for being here on a Friday. I come from Windsor, Ontario, border city. So my question is going to be for immigration to start with. Obviously, at a border city, especially with the volume of traffic, 40,000 vehicles per day, and about 40% of Canada's daily trade by land comes through here and rail. We also get a lot of refugees that are significant, especially during times when the United States has tried to push them outside their country, including some of the companies that were hired to actually move them from Florida and other places. We also have a college, St. Clair College and the University of Windsor, that use international students as part of their base for their educational system that come in from all over the world, been actively recruited. We also have temporary foreign workers, some of the highest numbers in Canada, if not just outside my region, where some people live here and then travel to every single day to work on mushroom farms and other types of greenhouse gas industries, greenhouse agricultural industries. We also have a shortage of skilled labor, being in the manufacturing sector. About my office has already had thousands of inquiries for immigration open, about 30 to 40 per day come in here or to us. And so my question is this, is how strategically wise was it to close the immigration office in the city of Windsor to the public and to those persons? How strategic was that, and when will that be reviewed?
I might turn it to my colleague who might be able to speak more towards our infrastructure and closures during the pandemic.
This was actually closed before the pandemic. It's a facility on Walker Road that actually holds hundreds of people, had ceremonies that I attended for over a decade, that was closed, and people can no longer go there to get assistance. The doors have been barred. The workers are still in there. So I'm just wondering what the strategy was behind basically shutting people out from being able to inquire about that, given the conditions that I've outlined here that are well known and documented.
Thank you, Chair, for the question. I'm afraid I don't have a specific, or I don't have a response for the member, but if we've taken note of the question and if we could get back to the committee.
That's fair enough. Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's a very serious issue, and that's why I listed off the challenges here, because the infrastructure actually exists and is still being either rented or owned by the federal government. The employees are still in there, and people are being turned away. In fact, the other question I'd have is that since we have a shortage of labor, how strategic it is for someone like, for example, I have a single mom that is waiting for her humanitarian case to be completed, who is working with no problems or convictions or issues with the Canadian economy taxpayer. She's actually being deported before her case can be appealed or reviewed, and will then deprive us of another skilled position in the community, in the healthcare system. So how strategic is that to actually deport people that are trying to get to Canadian citizenship from active employment and shortages of workplaces before we actually finalize the decision about their citizenship in Canada?
Thank you, Chair, for the question. Unfortunately, I don't have knowledge of this case, nor can I comment on those types of cases. Deportations.
Well, it could be any case. It could be any case. So let's say somebody is waiting for their humanitarian and compassionate ground case to be reviewed. They're being deported. It could be not only just here in my community, it can be anywhere in Canada. It could be any type of a trade position that's filled with a labor shortage. What is the strategy behind deporting people from a job where we don't even have a replacement for that, and especially in a sector where there might be even more of a shortage like the healthcare, and then have to bring that person back to Canada after breaking up the family or sending even what could be a Canadian citizen being a child to a foreign country they've never actually visited before? What's the strategy behind doing that?
Chair, I'm afraid I don't have an answer to that question.
Okay, well, these are the real things that your department is. And I mean, you just talk about strategy. I'm just wondering what this, how that fits between, dealing with a workforce. So I guess the other one I'd ask is what's the basis of limiting international students to 20 hours per week with employment? Maybe perhaps we can go to that policy. What's the strategy of that, given the fact that, again, we have shortage of people, and those international students play such high tuition costs. Most are living in poverty at times, going to food banks or bringing over money just to get by. And there's been increased levels of mental illness, depression, and other types of issues because some people think that they're all rich people coming over. It's not true. There's a lot of working class. So what's the strategy of limiting them to 20 hours a week?
Thank you for the question. With respect to international students, the rationale behind the 20 hours per week is just in recognition that the students are primarily here to study. And with respect to financial hardships during the COVID pandemic, several facilitative measures were made for international students with regards to not only extensions but with respect to the postgraduate work program, which many students avail themselves of.
Okay, so the 20 hours is based upon just a blanket policy as to, and has there been any consideration of changing that or having an exception to that? I know many students that are Canadian that work more than 20 hours a week actually because of the cost of education. I would suggest that that's not probably a number that, and especially when you get to the summer and March breaks and other breaks, they're working extra hours.
Thanks for the question. One of the requirements upon application to study in Canada is to demonstrate, sufficient funds to be able to carry out living and studying over the course of the study in Canada. With respect to if there's any thought to changing the 20 hour a week limit, I can say that the department's constantly reviewing the rules of our different programs, especially with regard to the current context being shortages in the labor market, and the comments of the member are taken.
Yeah, and I appreciate it. I know I'm out of time, Mr. Chair. I just want to thank you. I'm not trying to be difficult, but I have a full-time caseworker dedicated to immigration alone in this office for the public here. And the seriousness of the situation is so bad. The government now is only allowing us to have 5 emails a day for inquiries. And then that we actually have to go on the phones and put a staff on there for hours waiting on the lines. This is the real thing that's happening. In the cases that I mentioned, we have to turn around every single day because we get 5 emails allowed for contact per day. And it's just something that's not helpful for business, the community, and obviously the people that we're serving. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, MP Masse. I think your comments resonate with every members around this table.